Julie Winkle, and never pronounce her last name right. Give
You
it to
can
me.
just leave it at Winkle or try Giulioni.
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 Okay, you got to be careful with that now because, Rudy and all that, you got to be careful. Well,
Agreed.
you never know. Guilt by association. He's not a popular guy. But I've got Julie Winkle-Giulioni on here, and she is a repeat guest. I was looking, Julie, I think it was about a year ago almost. Time flies, but we had a conversation about your book at that time was Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. And it was a fantastic book. I understand it's still doing quite well, right? Didn't it get ranked pretty high?
It is. I'm stunned. We wrote it 10 years ago. We updated it in 2019. But yeah, it is an international bestseller, and it still is ranking. And everywhere I go, people grab it and show me where they've highlighted and dog-eared it. It's wonderful.
That's awesome. That's a great feeling. I've had a book in my head for about 25 years. And so I have the greatest admiration for people who follow through with that.
Well, thank you. You need to get it out of your head and on paper. You got a lot to share there.
I do. I'm just
Help
all over
him.
the place.
Happy to.
So, and what prompted this again, we were going to talk again anyway, because you have a second book out, which we're going to talk about with promotions or so yesterday. But you had posted an article on LinkedIn, and the title was a grabber. So it kind of grabbed my attention about, be on the lookout for what we've lost, combating the real casualty of remote work. And, I actually was thinking there'd be some other stuff on there as well, because that's a conversation within itself. But this started off, I guess there was a quote by Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, about be on the lookout for what is lost. And I think that is a powerful statement. What was, when you read that, and you obviously, contributed to this article and expanded on that thought, what about that really resonated with you?
It's something he said at the beginning on the onset of the pandemic, as we all sort of scattered to the wind. And it was kind of an interesting throwaway line at that point. It didn't really sink in until, over the course, because who knew how long the law was going to go on. But over the course of these 2 years, it's been extraordinary to see the really fundamental shifts that have happened in business, around management, at an individual level. And so what called this quote up again was when Microsoft released some new data that they had been able to gather and synthesize and analyze. And what they found was just totally surprisingly that in tech teams that your center of your locus of contact, your key contacts, those relationships remain strong, maybe even stronger. But what was lost, back to the quote, was that next level, your more distant contacts. And as I was thinking about it, I don't know, maybe it's just, urban legend or whatever, but how they say that the number of digits in a phone number is dictated by what we can hold in our head.
Right.
And it kind of extends for me, I just don't think the human brain, soul, psyche can juggle an infinite number of close relationships. And so during that extraordinary time, we had to double down on that tight circle, the closest folks that we depended upon most. And so those strengthened at the expense of some of those looser ties, particularly with other divisions, departments, functions. And there's a lot to be lost as we've found ourselves less connected in that way.
I'm buying that theory. I think it's, probably very profound, because when we're in the offices, and like I'm back now a couple days a week, and even in that limited time, I find myself saying hi and being, name recognition, face recognition with people. They've worked there for a year, but I didn't know them because they weren't there. And it's, out of sight, out of mind a little bit, I think. And yeah, we did. We had our tight group. And, we went into their homes because of Zoom and everything else. We just got more and more casual and informal and closer probably. But yeah, the next circle out, I guess it just started to kind of fade away.
To dissipate a little bit. And, you know, as you're wandering through the office, even that 1 or 2 days a week, you're probably saying hi to folks who aren't part of your, you know, your core circle.
Right.
And just those highs, just that seeing someone else is a reminder that, oh yeah, you know, there's an accounting department or
Right.
manufacturing or whatever it might be. And that makes all the difference in the world in terms of remaining connected to the bigger picture, you know, remembering what part we play and the part that others play, and you know, greasing the wheels for everything that needs to happen within an organization.
Well, you're obviously, you know, advising people either via consulting or via your work and your talks. What are you telling people to do to try to get some of that back? Because I know that you shared some ideas and there were some ideas in the article. What do you think is the kind of the secret sauce here?
Well, I think the first is to recognize that we have lost something, because until we label that, until we recognize that, it's hard to find the energy, given everything else that we have to invest in those relationships. But then at that point, I mean, there are just so many things that, in particular, leaders can do to inspire greater connectivity outside of that, you know, silo or work group. Things like just inviting someone from another department into your meetings, virtual or live, just putting that face on the screen or in the room as a reminder, hearing what's going on in another part of the organization, hearing the challenges that folks are up against, makes a huge difference in terms of personalizing it, you know, putting a face with the name and the function and the issues, and creating those reminders. Things like liaison and cross-functional buddies. It sounds so silly, but a small thing like assigning yourself to someone else in another function, just to touch base occasionally. If everyone on a team had one of those cross-functional buddies, that buddy becomes part of the core, you know, one of their small number that they can manage relationships. But we get the benefit of bringing that wisdom and those connections and insights into the team.
Karen, tell Julie where you're going next weekend and for the purposes of what?
So my partners and I started a company during the pandemic. Well, right before, and so we have not all been in a room together. We've been running a company, starting a company remotely. In fact, I have a partner in Ireland, and it's been really challenging. First of all, it's been a huge change for me, going from corporate America to startup, but then to do everything remote. And so next weekend will be the first time and since the beginning of the company that we will all be together. And
Oh my goodness.
yes, I can only imagine. We haven't all met each other either, so it'll be, yeah, physically in person. So it's going to be an interesting weekend. I think it'll do
Oh,
yes, it'll do a lot for our bond, and then hopefully strengthen our ability to be more productive remotely, with each other. It's just something about knowing somebody, meeting them in person, and spending time with them in person that's just invaluable. It can be done
oh,
like we're
agreed.
doing, right? But it's not
Right. Oh
comparable.
my gosh, how exciting. Take tissue, because I predict there are going to be tears. No, seriously, I just came off a conference, and the joy of being with people. There
Mhm.
are folks that I have been working with for the last 2 years, and it was hard to even really internalize that we hadn't met. I
Mhm.
felt like this one guy, I mean, he's like brother to me, and it was the first time we met. The joy is just palpable when we get to be physically together. So, oh, I'm so happy for you. I can't wait to hear how it goes.
So am I. I'm excited. It's
I don't get to go,
a
by the way. I
I'm
don't get to
sorry.
go.
Well, maybe when she goes to Ireland to do
Oh,
some work, you can tag along.
I am definitely tagging along that one. That's our favorite. That's our favorite place. Um, so, you know, it's funny because we do at my company, we do these pulse surveys once every 6 months. I guess that's not really a pulse survey, but it's a ENPS one question survey, and then they can add comments if they want. And this last one, we just completed it, got the results back last week. It's the first time that the comments actually didn't say, please don't make us come back to the office. This time we saw comments that were, please schedule some things where we can be together. Please do some team building. Please do. And you're like, yes, good. I mean, because, the genie's out of the bottle. We're never going to drag everybody back full time to the office. I don't think there's just no sense even pretending. But there's some, Karen, you mentioned it too. And Julie, I mean, that's why we put that article was so interesting is, we lost a lot, and maybe some of the fears gone. People are thinking more rationally, and they're remembering, that was a lot of fun to collaborate and to walk down the hall and poke your head in somebody's office and see somebody in the coffee room and just have 10 seconds to chat with them about the football game last night or something, and you're on your way. And I have this experience once a week at the office too, where I'll meet somebody and go, that's who you are. Because people, that's the other thing about Zoom. People were using black boxes a lot. Not everybody was turning on their camera. That was maddening. So you had all these meetings where you're talking to a black screen or somebody's photo, and it's just, not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always stunned at how tall everyone is. Just seeing 3 inches of them. It's so fun to see their full height.
Oh, we had that experience this week. We had a board meeting, and one of my colleagues is a good 6'6", if he's an inch. I mean, he's just a lanky dude, and everybody just assumed he was a normal 5'10", 5'11" guy.
way.
He comes in the room like, holy crap, Matt, what are you? This is you. So all of a sudden he's walking around. He's feeling pretty good about himself. So that was the article. Go ahead, hon.
No, I was going to say, so, I mean, because I read the article as well, this is every one of the recommendations here takes, it's intentional. I mean, you have to, in order to bring that connection back, I mean, I can see why it's important for leaders to, intentionally create these scenarios, because they're not going to happen without that. Which can seem a little bit forced in some ways, but we have to start somewhere. And hopefully when you implement some of these practices, then it doesn't become quite as forced. It becomes more natural, but we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, the loss of serendipity, and just that ad hoc sort of connection does, and I love your use of the word intentionality, and I don't think I'm overreaching when I say I think that, again, these last couple of years have heightened the importance of intentionality. I think we recognize how much we need to be deliberate about if we're going to make things happen. And yet I don't know that intention needs to feel contrived. In fact, there's something about almost the intention of making it happen that makes it more special, not less. The fact that I've placed so much importance on this, that I'm going to make this, I've created this artificial way to ensure that you're here. Man, I mean, what a statement of value that sends.
That's true.
Yeah.
It is. But you know what else? All the things that are on here are free. All the ideas are free. It doesn't cost a lot of money to do some of these things. And you put one comment in there that I thought that was pretty telling. Is the most powerful thing you can do is you're modeling. I mean, you are modeling the behavior you want to encourage and you want others to do. So if you are intentionally doing this and rinse, repeat, it'll look less contrived. It'll look less planned, and it'll soon become part of how you model leadership. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Let's get into our book, because I love this. Promotions are so yesterday.
Oh, can I get a tape of that, please?
That was great, right?
I love it. The Valley Girl came out.
That's right.
Yeah, the promotions are so yesterday. I mean, I think that is, a great title, first of all, because it's just so funny, and Val. But I think that it's very true, especially now. I think maybe not especially now, but you have this dynamic with the generation that's starting to dominate the workforce, and it will continue to become more and more part of it. Work-life balance is a big thing. I mean, bigger than ever. And I think COVID obviously stressed that even more for people who weren't already like that. So there's got to be ways for me to still feel fulfilled in my career without 15-hour days it takes to get a promotion that I want, or this new title. Or it's going to take more than that to keep me happy. If you're throwing me a title just so I'll shut up because I'm working too much, go, I'll tell you what, here, now you're extra vice president or something. No, I mean, they want fulfillment. And you put in some great alternative, what do you call them, the 7 alternative dimensions of what you can do besides promotions. Have you had people already put these into practice are you getting feedback on some of these dimensions yet?
Yeah, we are. The book just came out 2 months ago, but I began working with the model probably, I don't know, 9 or so months before that. And I'm delighted with the reception that we've received so far, because none of it's rocket science. I wish I could say that I was so smart and this was groundbreaking. The truth is, these dimensions have been rolling around in our heads. And what this multidimensional career framework does is it puts it out there and creates a structure and a language that we can all use to be talking about career development in broader terms than just that next position or title or promotion or move or role. And so it really validates. It was based upon 10 years of field research, talking with people about what careers meant to them. So I knew that was going to resonate. What I wasn't sure about, we've got these 7 alternate dimensions to that classic climb up the corporate ladder, that definition of career development. What I wasn't sure of was, as valid as these other dimensions were, how valuable were they? If you really ask people, rank them, like, wouldn't climb still be up at the top? And so we did this global study with about 750 folks worldwide, and just literally asked them to do that, rank these dimensions based upon some statements. And what was stunning about it, and the real validation to your point, or to your question, is that in aggregate, across ages, levels, genders, what we found was there was more interest in all of those other 7 dimensions than the climb up the corporate ladder. That
Really?
when we put these other dimensions, on the table, when it's on the menu, people will order those up. We've only been offering promotions as that definition traditionally. And so no wonder that's what everybody was signing up for. So it's been really heartening. Every group I go to, I do some form of this self-assessment, do a poll, have people share their top interest. And every time before I share the poll results, I have this knot in the pit of my stomach thinking, okay, this is the time when everything's going to go south. And every time I am stunned. Climb is at the bottom. All of these other dimensions are really speaking to people, really alive for people today.
Do you think it was always like that, or do you think that things have changed here, or what's happened in the last couple of years kind of?
It's such a good question, Karen. And I wish I had a time machine so I could go back and do like a pre and a now sort of thing. I think it's evolved, and maybe we're all feeling some of this a little bit more acutely because of the experience of the last couple of years. But my intuition tells me it was there.
I agree.
And now it's there in a bigger way. And it's there in a way that's more, I don't know, socially acceptable.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about wellness. I mean, that is such a big topic right now, and mental health. And so no wonder now it's safe to say contentment is a dimension that's important to me. I need to cultivate more ease and joy and fulfillment and balance in my life. Same with purpose. I mean, we've seen so many people trade the prestige and the pay and the perks for more purpose. And so it's okay to now say, I really want to contribute. I want to figure out how to give more, be more, offer more. Can you hear my dog snoring in the background?
I can.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's great.
Totally bored her. At least it's the dog and not you guys.
No,
That's right.
great.
What kind of dog is it? What kind of dog do you have?
She's just she's a rescue.
Yeah.
A
Oh,
really
that's cute.
sweet and obviously sleepy little gal.
Yeah, ours is over here too.
Yeah, she's asleep over there, but she's
She's
she's not asleep.
she's on
She's
the
just
work couch.
she's clocking squirrels. That's
Oh,
what she's doing.
Yes.
You know
I
what?
love it.
Karen will remember this. A couple years prior to all this craziness, I was doing some talks at some of the HR conferences, and there was this one presentation I had called "We're All Millennials Now," is because you mentioned this being more socially acceptable, and because millennials kind of showed us the way of saying that's not the most important thing to me anymore. I'm going to be with my family. I want to have fulfillment. I want to have purpose. They made it okay to say that. So, millennials get bagged on all the time. So I'm going to throw them a nice little kudo there. But it's true. You can say that now. You can say, I'm not interested in traveling on the weekends if that's what it takes to get ahead. I'm not interested in doing that. If that hampers my career, but it makes I have more time for my family, I'm good with that. And now, even more so, I think, you mentioned mental health. Mental health has never, in my career anyway, has never been such a focus. It used to get wellness and mental health, in my opinion, got a lot of lip service. You would get wellness programs and it would be, well, you're going to have a discount at the gym. That was your wellness program. Now there is a concerted effort. I think today is Mental Health Day, by the way. I want to say it is because somebody told me that.
Somebody
everything's
told
got
me that.
Yeah, I know. I
Google.
don't know, but I think it is. But it's become such a valid and prioritized thing for people, for companies too. They're actually looking at, we got to do this because people are not, 2 years of this, it's just not right for the human psyche. It's just not. So I don't know.
No, people are not okay in many cases. And God bless organizations that are stepping up and recognizing they've got a responsibility and all that. And I so agree with you. The newer entrants to the workplace have given us permission to say what was in our hearts and souls. And so bless their hearts for giving us that space and letting all of us now elevate the quality of our lives and enhance the employee experience.
And I'm wondering, like our kids, we've got a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old. What is the, work life going to look like for them when they're out? It's going to be gig economy and working from home.
Well, so first of all, our 21-year-old is looking for fulfillment in his job, and I'm sitting there reflecting on when I was 21, and I was like, I just needed a job to survive, so I didn't live on the streets, and fulfillment wasn't the first thing that I was thinking about when I was 21. I think it's very interesting, this younger generation coming up, and honestly, my heart feels bad for him because I'm forcing him to get a job that's not fulfilling. But am I a bad mom if I just let him, not work? It's hard because I
It's
want
a
him to
no-win position for
No.
moms.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
you
I
know what?
want him to feel
Unemployment is
fulfilled.
not a fulfilling thing either. So remember that.
That's true.
No, it's not. But it's interesting how deep our kids are, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
This next generation, there is so much going on, and thankfully, we're leaving plenty of problems for them to solve. I
Right?
feel like we're in good hands.
Yeah. you know what? We won't go down this rabbit hole too much with the kids today, but boy, they just took it on the chops with this, probably more so than anybody. And the kids that came out of it who are starting to come around again, the mental toughness and things that they built, they're not going to, take anything for granted. I don't think. This has been something that just the way school changed, the way their family life changed, the way their parents' careers changed, everything. It was a lot to absorb.
It's going to be really interesting to see because our generation, or at least my mindset, was always climb, right? Get
That's
in the
Gen X.
corporate
Yeah.
and climb. And it's something that was taught to me by my dad. It was my parents modeled it, right? I wonder what it's like to not have any of that. I guess
Influence.
yeah, because it's still there, even though, I'm reading these, of course, contribution, competence, challenge, confidence, I would take all of those over a title. Ask me that 3 years ago, and I would have said something probably a little bit different. Those would have been important, but I was also working for that title, right? But
Mhm.
to just, if for this generation to start without any of those preconceived ideas and not having those in your head, just imagine how much, I guess, how much more I would go after, or I guess seek or drive towards those more fulfilling things than just a title, right? There's so much more than just that.
Yeah,
Um,
well, like your son, like your I'm assuming a son, I don't know why I
yes,
went
yeah,
there. Is your
yeah,
21-year-old?
yeah,
Okay, I
2
knew
boys, yeah,
that. Like your son, he isn't feeling as bound by some of that
right,
tradition and is leaning into that contribution, that purpose, that bigger picture. And yet, to be honest, Karen, I think it's gonna be a couple of generations before anybody is really free of that. I
mhm,
think that model is so deeply ingrained
mhm,
in our, I mean, just the way we talk to kids about what do you want to be when you grow up.
right, right,
We've associated what work is with what you're called, and it's going to take a long time to break those bonds and unravel it. But at some point, yeah, wouldn't it imagine a world where we're free from that extrinsic motivation to
right.
Yes.
go somewhere and get to really be who we are and grow in ways that are meaningful for us. It'd be awesome.
It would, right?
I'm going to reset real quick too, if anybody's going to join midway through this, but we are talking to Julie Winkle-Giulioni, author of Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, author of Promotions Are So Yesterday, and all around evangelical person when it comes to development of employees. I mean, you are committed. That is your game. Why is that? When did that become so critical and such a part of who you are, the development of employees?
It was when I was about 30 and I hit my first just okay boss, not even bad boss, just okay boss. The first part of my career was I lived under the stars and had one boss after another who was just a natural developer of people. And I took it for granted. I had no idea the truly the magic that was happening around me. I just knew I loved work and there was nothing more joyful than showing up and doing what I was getting paid for. And I didn't understand what my friends were talking about when they complained about it because it was everything I imagined going to
You were
work,
living right.
for
You
this
were
boss.
living right, and you didn't even realize it.
I had no idea, and then I had the experience of contrast. Not even a bad boss, just an okay boss.
Mhm.
And it was debilitating for me. It sucked my soul out of
Mm.
me. I lost my enthusiasm for my work. And when I couldn't grow the way I had 15 years of experience growing, I realized that I needed to change paths quickly, get out of that situation. But what I really wanted to do was crack the code on what all of those incredible bosses did for me and help others to replicate that. So that was my shift into leadership development, which ultimately came into the career development arena.
Well, let me tell you, if you made it to 30 without a bad boss, you were
I know. Tell me about it. The stars were so aligned. And like I said, it was so dopey. I had no idea because that had just been all I had known. And so gratefully, I had this other experience. And I actually dedicated the new book to all of those bosses who toiled away with no recognition in service of my development.
I bet they remember you though. I bet I know it's a satisfying thing too to see somebody that you were a mentor for go on to do great things. I mean, you always take a little pride in that. So that's awesome too.
So has there been an uptick in companies looking for outside resources to help them navigate this, in the current environment? Have you seen an uptick in that?
I personally have. I don't know if that's related to the work that I do or, if it's a general trend. But given the great resignation, organizations, as you well know, are just scrambling to try to, stop the hemorrhaging and to really look at what they need to do, not just to put a tourniquet on it, but to really assess what's going on in our culture, what kinds of systems and processes and behaviors can we put in place that'll create a long-term positive, really constructive environment. And so that seems to be the focus of many of the organizations, at least that are reaching out to me.
It's crazy. We had a discussion today about, you mentioned the great resignation, great reshuffling, the great reluctance, whatever we want to call it. But in one specific position that we hire for is challenging, and it's in healthcare. It's a nursing role. 2 years ago, prior to the pandemic, this came from our staffing VP. So there were 4,500 openings that were posted in the markets that we service. 2 years later, there are 8,500 openings in those same markets. And they are, candidates are sitting back and, you're saying what's in it for, companies have to see this. They have to really recognize this. Employees or candidates are going to look where they can find a job that's fulfilling, hits those marks for some of the alternate dimensions too. They want to know up front if there's opportunities for them. And I think that this is a time to differentiate yourself as an employer, right? Because the talent's there, great talent is there, and they're being picky. And if you can figure out your message, you have a competitive advantage right now. It's time to do it.
Yeah, you are so right. Given the employment marketplace, it's clearly a candidate's world out there. And it's interesting. I've had several clients recently who've come to me and started talking about how do we incorporate this, not just into onboarding, introduce people right from the get-go to an expanded way of thinking about your career. I've got a couple of clients who are incorporating it into their selection interviewing process and starting the conversation right there about how we think about development in our organization for exactly what you were just saying, to differentiate themselves from that next interview that they'll be at in a couple of hours.
And it's funny because you will read, I can't help it. I still scroll Twitter occasionally, and I'll see some of the other HR professionals who are in talent acquisition. And there was a discussion thread going on yesterday about some things that employers are still trying to do when they're interviewing people. They're asking for all these, I need you to do a 30-minute presentation. I need you to do a write-up for me, and I need you to come up with 3 ideas that you would implement here. Like they're asking for like free work is what they're asking for. And, you think that's going to put you up in the selection model. That is just craziness. You have to make it. We used to say you want to make it painless. You want to make it easy to work here. You want to make it easy. But now you have to make it not just easy. You have to give people a reason why they want to stay there. And like you said, saying it up front. And I think that's brilliant. This is how did you phrase it? This is how we view development.
We think about development in our organization.
Great. That's great.
Yeah.
And we keep mentioning these 7 alternate. I just want to read them real quick for the benefit of the audience because there's 7 alternate dimensions. They all begin with the letter C, strangely enough, but they are contribution, competence, confidence, connection, challenge, contentment, and choice. And my thought is you want to figure out which of these kind of fits with each individual's preferences, or how do you go about trying to find out which of these is the appropriate one?
Oh, great question. Yeah, because so frequently what happens is managers, with all the best intentions and probably trying to save time and effort on everyone's part, do try to divine what others are thinking, what they want, what's going to be best for them. And, we're all so unique. And at any given time, one or a couple of these dimensions might be more or less interesting to others. So we actually created a self-assessment that individuals can take. So that takes the guesswork out of it. There's one in the book, but we also have one online that's a little bit more sophisticated. It's and it generates an emailed report to the employee. But it helps people understand at this point in time what's most and not so and least interesting to me. And then if an employee goes through that self-assessment process, first of all, it's an education because they start to recognize, there is more there. I didn't have the language for it. I didn't have that structure for it. So it starts to sell them on, okay, climb is there, but there's all the rest of this. But then it also gives them the basis for having a much different conversation with their boss. When they can come and say, I did the self-assessment, here's the bar chart, and contribution is where I'm really living. And my backups might be, connection and confidence. That manager can start the coaching conversation so much further along. What would have taken months of discovery, you've got, and you can start right from that point moving forward to, all right, let's look around and see what can we co-create here within the envelope of your current role that's going to allow you to have that experience and to grow in the process.
I did it. I did the assessment.
Well, I read through the questions, and I think it was really a great exercise, because I can answer the way I would have answered 3 years ago, and then I can answer where I am today, and clearly see the difference in the different settings.
And that's such
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean,
different setting, different time of life.
Mhm.
When it comes to development, one size doesn't fit all, but one size doesn't even fit one for our whole careers. We're
Sure.
going to change and have different needs. And the other thing about the dimensions is, there's the interest piece of it on the part of the employee, but we also have to look at what's available in the organization. Sometimes there might not be a lot of available, challenge. And so then you've got to look at, well, what's number two? How can I meet those needs as well? So it's that balancing the availability with the appetite to figure out how we can help people, really optimize their experience and the growth within that experience.
Yeah, mine came out contribution. That was mine. That's what I value. You want to do something that means something. And Karen, I know yours is going to be connection or something like that.
Yes.
It's got to be.
I'm reading through it right now, and I'm like, yeah, you got it. And for certainly climb, where it would have been higher several years ago, is definitely not even on my radar right now. So
yeah. The thing that surprises me every time I do this with groups is that contribution is so high up there. We just have such a human need to be of service and to make things better, to leave things better, to live on purpose. It's really fascinating to me. And yet the thing about this framework is, while you could look at it as a bit of an engagement framework model, it really is about development. And so when you think about contribution, it's not just about let's get something from the employee. Let's have them step up and do more and step into voids and take things on. How can we make it a two-way street? How can we make sure that as they're giving, they're also getting in terms of skills and a network and experiences, that they can put in their portfolio? So, Karen, it's kind of going back to your word, intentionality. How can we be intentional about the contribution so that it's really, there's reciprocal value there?
I managed a team of 10 up to 10 at one point, people across the US that for a company that I was working with for, and we didn't have a lot of tools, leadership training nor tools, and so I go to my go-to guy, John Whitaker, and say, I need to do something with my team. Like I want to develop them. And so I can't remember what you gave me, but it was a really complex kind of. My bottom line is they hated it and still talk about it today. I know it was terrible. What was that thing where remember I had a personalized development plan, PDP? Is that what it was?
I gave you that?
I think so. And it was this complex spreadsheet, and then they had to go do
like
their part. And anyway, you asked Mindy and Chicky, they both hated it with a passion.
Well,
and then
I'm
it
gonna
was
bring
hard
that up
for
with both
me.
of them
It was
then.
hard for me as a manager to follow up on it, because I had never been trained in the practice either. So I was trying to do something that was out of my comfort zone. It was definitely out of their comfort zone. And I think something like this would have gotten us way to a better point much quicker. I can tell that.
Now, an exercise I used to do is I used to have a pie chart with 3 sections, and it was, okay, one section, and you wanted to think of what was your best boss ever. All right. And what were the qualities? And so you would put things that were part of their technical knowledge in one segment, that were part of their education or industry knowledge in one segment, and then the other stuff, the soft skills. And it would always be everything crammed into the soft skills. They don't care that you went to Harvard. They don't care that you were on the cover of Inc. magazine. They care that you were compassionate and you listened and you helped develop them and you gave them purpose and blah, blah, blah. They gave them feedback. So, it does go both ways. And sometimes the things that we as managers think are most important, like we need a formal mentorship program. We need a formal L&D program. Nah, you don't. You know what you need to do? Go down and talk to your employees occasionally. If you talk to them, open the conversation, and then if you can get a few cool tools like you have, because Karen, you're right. And thinking about it, how you served it up, Julie, is have your people do this, then they are coming to you because they have discovered something about themselves, and then you can collaborate and do it together. That's a lot more important than saying, okay, we need to set up this formal program where you're going to go to class this week and next week. Hey, that's just when you start, that just gives me tired head thinking about having to put something like that together. But I can have a little one-on-one with my employees, and we can have an icebreaker or do some sort of game or something like that. And now what we're going to do is Julie's assessment. That's what we're going to do. So
Yes. Well, I love that tired head. I've not heard that, but I'm going to be using that, John. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a go-to for me.
Yeah, it totally says it all. I totally understand what tired head is. What I really like about what you've just said, it really underscores what I've come to understand, which is that development is a relationship. It really boils down to a relationship between the individual and the boss and others in the organization. And that relationship plays out through conversation. And I don't want to diminish the importance of an IDP and the systems and the data that needs to go into the organization for workplace planning purposes and that kind of thing. But that nobody, when they reflect back on what that boss did that helped me grow, says, he just filled out that form like nobody's business. He, really nailed the process. It's none of that. It's all the relational stuff.
And I think that's so lost sometimes with older school management. At least that was my experience. The very basic thing, which is having a relationship, showing that you care about the people that report to you, taking a couple minutes on every phone call to just ask how they're doing, how their family is, and making it personal, not just all about business. I unfortunately had a lot of I learned a lot of what not to do in leadership.
You had a run, boy. You had a run of bosses.
I did. But I learned a lot
There's
about
a lot to be learned from that as well.
Yeah, there is.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had a great run until you were 30 of having great bosses. You probably did, and you took it for granted because you didn't have a bad boss before that. So if you get a bad one, then you end up getting a good one. It's like, hallelujah. You recognize it immediately.
Well, I would hope.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You were saying what, Julie? You know what?
Oh, I was just going to say, Karen, you knew what it felt like to be on the receiving end of that. And having that visceral experience changes everything when you're in the boss mode.
Oh, absolutely.
you know, in your bones, you don't want to do certain things.
It's true.
Yep.
That's true.
Absolutely.
One thing that I did take a note, this references back to Help Them Grow, Watch Them Go, that I thought was interesting too. There was a comment, it was either one of the articles cited, but tenured employees specifically are being ignored. It said tenured employees are being ignored. And that, I think, rings true too, because you get the new employee, you got to develop them, you got to make sure they're engaged, you got to onboard them, blah, blah, blah. Then they get in and you're like, okay, good. Now I don't have to worry about them. And you have all these tenured employees and you're just assuming they don't need any more development. And I think, again, I think it's another great use of the tool is you'll find out in a hurry if somebody still has aspirations to do something. And you probably have a lot of capabilities in your own office that you're not even aware of.
Yeah,
People wanting to do things.
Yeah, that's so true. It's really easy to put it on autopilot for especially mid-career professionals. And yet you're right. They take the self-assessment and they're going to have certain dimensions that speak out to them. And it may not be, the climb, and it may not be competence, for instance. They may feel like, I kind of got the skill set down. I don't need to grow in that particular way. But, connection, confidence is one of the most underrated, I think, of the dimensions. It's not one that we normally think about, but man, when you've got a dip in it, it's a career, breaker, really. And we all have, I mean, during the course of our career, and it's not uncommon for it to happen more in the middle or in, as you're getting further on in your career. It's not necessarily a newbie sort of phenomenon. And so there are times when what growth looks like is doubling down on, what do I have to do to really trust my ability to show up and predictably deliver what's expected of me? How can I make sure I've got this experience at work? And that's, that could be mid-career, could be late career.
You're right. And it's powerful too. When you see somebody in a room that they have confidence in what they're talking about, that's powerful. And then you can also tell when somebody's really not there, they're hesitant, and it impacts them. If you can, build that up, you create a pretty powerful employee. And ultimately, I gave an example about the recruiting challenge with 8,500 openings or whatever. That just, you have to double down on retention. Any way you can retain your current people. It's like retaining current customers. The effort to go get new customers versus keeping your loyal customers is way out of whack. Well, keep your employees. That's the best part of your talent acquisition, is make sure you keep your good ones. And I know this is a huge retention tool. Would you agree, Julie? Isn't that part of what you're saying?
Oh gosh, there is an inextricable link between retention and development for sure. So organizations that are investing intelligently in the development process have a much better chance of not just having people come in the front door only to go out the back door.
Right. Wait, I had a saying that I thought was pretty cool.
Of course
I did. It's like, well, they were asking about, we got all these openings. I said, well, it's because we had the air conditioning on, but all the windows are open. You can't cool this room down. And so
I love it.
Let's close the windows and keep these people, and then it'll get a lot better around here. So yeah, things like this go a long way.
And that helps when you close the windows and you figure out how to keep people. It makes it a lot easier to recruit new people in.
Yes,
That reputation, I mean, there's such access to information the transparency is there. People know what your brand is. And so closing the windows enhances the brand.
Right. So they're either going to tell their friends and tell their family, or you're going to see it on Glassdoor or something like that, or LinkedIn. People, when they're happy someplace, they let people know. So Julie,
and when they're unhappy, they let.
Yeah, that you know what, more of them let them know when they're unhappy. That's true. If people want to find out more about you, if they want to find out more about the book or any of the programs that you're running, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
All things related to promote. Karen, you have to say it though. I'm going to leave a blank and you say it. All things related to
promotions.
The title of the book.
Promotions are so yesterday.
For sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Can be found at juliewinklegiulioni.com, my website.
And I will have.
And there's a yellow button on the homepage to take the self-assessment.
Oh, there is?
Get the personalized report. Yeah.
I'm going to pass this along to my friend who's new in a leadership role. She was she reported directly to me, and I think this is something that will be really helpful for her, because I know the organization, I know the limited tools that she has, and I think that this will really help her as she settles into that leadership position and help the people that are fortunate enough to report to her.
I'm going to have Jack do it.
Thank you, Karen. And if you help her, let me know.
I will.
Well, we are going to wrap it up with that, but I want to make sure that we've given you a chance to promote the book. And you said it just came out, right? A couple of weeks ago? I did. I already read some of the reviews, and you're already getting some good reviews. It's already getting good buzz. You can get it on Amazon. Any other places that right now that you can get it?
Yeah, it was published by ATD Press. So you can buy it competitively at atd.org as well.
Fantastic. Well, Julie, you're one of only a handful of repeat guests. You're just such a joy to talk to. You have such a great attitude. And thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh my goodness. It is such an honor to be back with you two. And Karen, you're such a wonderful addition to the show. Thank you both for your graciousness.
Thanks for being on, and for the kind words. I'll hopefully live up to that.
Well, and have a great day, great rest of the week, and a great Memorial Day next weekend.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye-bye, Julie.